Hello and welcome to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than my normal content. I'm not going to do a video where I'll walk through post-processing or explain how to use an app or something like that. Today I want to cover a couple of different topics. The first one's really short. It's managing expectations. And I wanted to go over this because I'm going to show you some images that I captured early on, 2016, 2017, when I first started capturing Milky Way. When you start out doing this type of photography, unless you are an expert in one of the other genres of photography and you understand exactly how to use a camera and exactly how to post-process images, you're going to struggle a little bit. You may or may not be able to have the results that a more experienced photographer like myself. So you kind of have to manage your expectation. If you don't get an image that matches what mine looks like, it's not because you're bad at it. It's not because you don't know what you're doing. It's not because you'll never get there. It's simply because you're just starting out. Second thing that I want to go over is foreground. In the beginning, I just wanted to capture images of the Milky Way, and I see this a lot in other people's images. It'll just be a shot of the Milky Way above the trees, or maybe with a little bit of land, beach, whatever, below it, but not much else. And it didn't take me long to realize that what I really needed to capture was the entire scene. I needed to capture foreground so that the viewer would be able to place themselves in my same spot, seeing what I saw, the sky, the beach, the mountains, whatever it was. I needed to put all of that together. And it can be tougher than you think. Foreground's really dark. So what I'm going to go over today is a couple of options that you have to enhance that foreground, to draw the viewer into the image. Let's go. To begin with, I'm going to show you my first Milky Way image. I'm almost embarrassed. This was taken from DeWitt's Bluff on the Great Petey River back in June of 2016. We all have to start somewhere, and you have to realize that this type of photography can be tough with a very steep learning curve. A month later, I was able to do a little better, but you see I still hadn't put together that I needed that foreground. It's just trees in the Milky Way. A couple of more months, an upgraded camera and lens, and I was able to move closer to where I wanted to be. This was my first trip to the Charleston area, and I was able to use the Sullivan's Island light paint the foreground a little bit, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Finally, in February of 2017, it clicked, and I started getting the shots I wanted. And because I had discovered stacking, I was able to improve my post-processing as well. I call this image the boat because the sand fence resembles a beached rowboat. The fence, the ridges in the sand, and the atmosphere of the Milky Way made this one of the first shots that I felt like I could place the viewer right there with me. How do we get there? The problem is that high ISO nightscape images suffer from noise, especially in darker background. They are difficult to balance and even more difficult to edit. One way to fix it is to shoot the foreground during blue hour, either just after dark or just before dawn. You can get the shot while it's not in direct sunlight, but while it's still light enough to use a lower ISO. This method is ideal for very wide, sweeping vistas like mountains or valleys, and it requires patience because you have to leave the camera set up in the same spot while you wait for the first and second shot. This can limit your compositions and requires compositing multiple images. I've never been a fan. I prefer to shoot and move a lot, and I want my foreground and sky on the same image. Here are some of my blue hour images. This was taken just before sunrise. So this is an image of Comet Neowise and an example of what I mean when photographing at blue hour is best for wide sweeping vistas. This was at the top of a rise, and I shot down into this little valley, and I was able to put light over these trees in the distance because I was shooting at blue hour. And finally, this is an image of the Milky Way at blue hour. This is from the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The sun is set. You can still see the warm glow on the horizon. But the dunes in front of me are lit because there's still ambient light in the air. The second way to get foreground to stand out is light painting. While the shutters are open to capture the sky, you paint the scene with a dim light. This can be a very tricky technique, and it's best done by hand when your foreground is close. It can be used on distant objects, but you'll need to use a timer or some type of long-distance remote release. The practice has actually been banned in several national park areas, so if you're headed somewhere like that, you might want to check it out before you start waving a flashlight around. I've actually been able to do quite a bit of this using the sweeping light of a lighthouse or random lights from a passing car. Here's some of my favorite shots using this. Again, you'll end up having to composite several shots together to really get even lighting you're looking for. This is from Oak Island, North Carolina, and the dunes in the foreground and the sand fence are lit by a lighthouse that's behind me. And this is the Bodies Island Lighthouse, one of my favorite lighthouses to capture because it has a lighting sequence of 2 seconds off, 2 seconds on, 22 seconds off, 2 seconds back on. So you have enough downtime to get dark images, but you can add some of the lit images to paint your foreground. This is an image from Pawleys Island, and I used the re-entry burn from this passing Falcon rocket first stage to light the foreground on this image. It's another example of using light painting but getting creative with the light painting. I'll throw one more in here, and this kind of shows the difficulty with light painting and getting it even. This was an unintentional light painting. I had several people that either drove up or started walking around the beach here at Cape Hatteras waving flashlights around. So obviously you can see it's not very well lit. This is something you need to be aware of. Another reason that it's maybe not my favorite method. That brings me to the preferred method, AI noise reduction plus stacking. It doesn't really require any additional work in the field. You don't need extra flashlights or low lights or adjustable lights or anything like that. All you have to do is make sure that you're capturing multiple images for stacking. I simply shoot and move to the next composition, then let the software do most of the heavy lifting in post. I've found through a lot of experimentation that using Starry Landscape Stacker and some of the other stacking software on a set of images will produce not only lower noise, sharper sky, but it will also reduce some of the noise in the foreground. This has allowed me to do all of my editing on a single image, creating a much cleaner and more evenly lit photo. Now, the addition of AI noise reduction recently has had a truly amazing effect on these stacked images. It has taken astro landscape photography to the next level. Processed images are now cleaner and sharper and can be pushed well beyond anything we were able to do before. Here's some examples from this past year where I've been using this new workflow. This one's from Pawleys Island, and this is even. There's only ambient light was used in this image. Another one from Pawleys Island, similar. You can see just using ambient light, you can develop color and a lot of definition in the water as well as the beach out here quite a ways away from me. And finally, an image of the Falcon rocket. This is the second stage before the first stage had lit off for re-entry, and I've got a little bit of thunderstorm flashes here on the horizon, but we have nice detail in this foreground out here in the waves, the beach and the grass, and this is all with ambient light. If you want to check out my current process, I'll link it above. It's basically to run a set of stacked images through DxO's Pure Raw 5 without applying lens correction, and then edit for stacking in Lightroom. The results are amazing, and I can really see a difference in my foregrounds. Now, there are limits. The farther the foreground is away, the darker it will be, but that's when it's time to consider one of the other methods. So, there you have it. If you want to up your landscape astro and Milky Way game, make sure you add some compelling foreground to your image. I hope you got something out of this video. Please like, subscribe, follow me on social media. And as always, it's time to get out there and capture some magic.